Hey everyone, Monica Jezik from RPI Education, and welcome to the Financial Freedom Summit. In this series, you'll hear from 21 experts sharing powerful, little-known wealth-building strategies that 98% of people are not using. These interviews are packed with real actionable steps to help you fast-track your financial freedom. So let's jump in and welcome today's guest, Eric Balance. Eric, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I love how you're bringing this interview from your boat. You found it was the Financial Freedom Summit, so you're like, I'm going on my boat, right?
Yes, it's important to find your niche and live the lifestyle you want. And part of my game here is to work from my boat at least one day a week during the beautiful summer season.
I love that. I think really that's what it's all about. We have to make the most of our September weather for sure. I have a
Yep.
quick bio, which I'm going to read for the audience here. Eric is born and raised in a family of entrepreneurs and understands the risk and reward of business and the multi-skill sets required to build a business from the ground up. The Balance family has spent over 50 years renovating and building traditional wood frame homes and over 40 years in the event building business, fabricating modular structures for mobile programs, including modifying containers for pop-up retail activations. Balance Containers has combined their experience with both industries and have come up with some most premium container homes available. Welcome, Eric. So basically, you're talking to us
Yeah.
about your awesome container homes. And we've known each other for a while. And I've been to your factory. I know we did a small event and tour at your factory in Oakville, Ontario. And you've built some fantastic modular homes. You walked us through the cost, the structure, options, all these sort of stuff. So I have to make sure I don't know all the answers to these questions in advance. So I'd say modular homes really is kind of your niche to wealth building. Is that correct?
Correct. So as you mentioned, we have a factory in Oakville. We can build homes up to 90% complete in our clean, temperature-controlled, environmentally safe factory. That within modular construction, you're building on average twice the speed of traditional building methods.
Yes, twice the speed. And I think that's the main advantage too, because I know there's a huge need. We are in Canada and the US, there's housing crisis, and people are trying to come up with all these innovative solutions of how we could build homes faster, how we could build homes cheaper so they're more affordable for people. And I know that speed is really, because time is always of the essence. It could take years to go through standard construction projects. I know speed with containers really speeds up the process. What would you say about pricing per square foot? Because I know a lot of people are, on the fence about what they're going to pay per square foot. Would you say it's also a cost efficient measure, or is it more in that aspect trading apples for apples?
Yeah, we get asked this a lot, and the misnomer or maybe the misconception with container homes specifically is that it's just a cheap alternative for building a house. You've got to remember we use the same drywall, the same kitchens, the same flooring, all of the finishes that you'd expect in a traditional home, plumbing, electrical. So, there's no real cost savings there. What you are saving on is time and efficiencies. And cost per square foot, we can save a client 10-15% over traditional because with container homes especially, you don't need to add siding to the whole building. You can go with a very basic roof package. So you can find, savings there. We can build as low as $350 a square foot in the Canadian marketplace. But it is speed. So when I say twice the speed, most of our homes are coming out of our factory within 2 to 4 months. It gets people into their homes quicker. If it is a rental property, you're collecting rental dollars sooner.
Mm.
And it is the lens in today's world talking about the housing crisis and housing solutions. And at a federal level, our prime minister is even talking about modular construction as being, a medium that they want to invest heavily in if they have any, goal of trying to build the amount of homes that are needed today.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I just remembered, because I know our audience is Canada, US, actually worldwide. you also service people in the US, or I think you service some commercial venues in the US. Did you not have some chip shop in Florida or something
Correct.
like
Yeah,
that?
we've built a beach bar restaurant in Florida. We've had several projects in the States. We're actually speaking to people all over North America. We've got some builders in California that are looking at our solutions because they are fire resistant to help rebuild California after the devastating fires. We're having conversations with developers in the Caribbean islands that are looking at container homes to help with the hurricane damaged areas because these things are wind resistant. It is a medium that can be built and shipped anywhere. It just comes down to, obviously cost and transportation cost to get these things to the destination. But yes, the market is endless of where these things can end up.
It really is. And that's really cool that you're expanded so globally because when we were doing our travels through the US, we are from Canada as well. But when we were doing our travels, doing our development in Florida and then traveling through Arizona as well as Texas, because we have teams in place there, it is amazing how the building process is so different in each area and each market. Even Arizona to Texas to Florida is different amongst itself. But the difference between building here in Canada, where we have winters, in comparison to those warmer US countries or states, it's so different and it's so much cheaper to build because we don't have to worry about the insulation. You don't have to worry about a lot of the different factors that we have to worry about here in Canada. So that and the Caribbean islands, I could totally see that being such a easy fit there. As
Yep.
that was where time, is of the essence right there. If you're in an emergency situation and we need to provide housing for people, as long as you can get the shipping containers to the people and get them outfitted in time, then that really could be a faster situation.
Yeah, definitely. In Canada, we face some of the strictest building codes there are, and we have temperature swings of over 75 degrees between winter and summer. And so, yes, there are a lot more costs and a lot more planning that do go into our houses, specifically in Ontario. It is much easier to outfit homes in warmer climates. We're more concerned with keeping the heat out and the cool in. Without huge relative temperature changes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But you are Canadian and your factory is situated in Oakville, and I will attest, audience, there is nothing cheap about these homes. They are beautiful. I love your container homes. I know a lot of people are trying to work their way around the process, making costs the number one thing. But I think it's the solution and the speed that really has kind of started working towards solving the housing crisis when the government needs to be a little more cooperative. I think, we need to speed things along because we have innovative builders like yourself who have these solutions to add these ADUs, to add these extra units, to add even multifamily units you built, correct? Like apartments, student rental buildings.
Yeah, we get asked all the time. Obviously, cost is the most important driving factor for most people. As I mentioned, material costs are material costs, labor costs are labor costs, and they're always increasing. The thing is relying on speed and as well as size of these structures. We've got to get away from building 4,000 square foot homes if people want to create more housing. People now during COVID have gotten used to tiny homes, have gotten used to more compact living. And it's one of the main ways to drive costs down is to have more efficient, functioning, smaller houses that people can afford. And part of the solution is to build what are now legal in all of Ontario is these backyard accessory dwelling units. You're now allowed to have three buildings on each property. So a homeowner could convert, traditionally their basement into a separate apartment. You now are allowed to have one or two accessory buildings in your backyard as another rental income or multifamily smaller home.
That is incredible because that helps people one, keep up with these higher interest rates because now their property's actually bringing money in, or two, allows more families who are in on the mortgage and everyone's contributing, two, because primary residence cost of living has increased substantially, like not even
Especially,
substantially.
especially in Ontario. You start talking about the average house being over $1 million now. It's just not obtainable for the average person. And so we're seeing a lot of families sort of uniting, and their children may not be able to afford their first home. So they instead are building a 500 or 600 square foot first home in their parents' backyards. And or the opposite. The parents want to downsize and retire early and are moving to the backyard and then buying their seasonal property in Florida or what have you, and the children are moving into the main house.
I like that. That actually could work out really well, especially since when a lot of parents, I like the fact that you use the scenario that they actually leave and go to Florida. But there are also a lot of grandparents that are almost raising their grandchildren as the parents because they both have to go out to work. And so that really fits because it doesn't disrupt that nature of the kids. My favorite story that you told and it was featured in Toronto Star was the story about that one woman who had a disabled son. Was it a disabled son or
Her brother,
brother?
her brother, her
Brother.
brother. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they built that ADU out back for them. So then this is also for adults who are have disabilities that can obtain their independence. A great way for them to have independence and a separate living space, as well as a break for the caregiver. But it's still a great way to remain on the same premises.
Yeah, it gives people their independent space, but keeping them close enough to keep an eye on them. Someone living 50 feet away in your backyard still allows them to have some pride and ownership of their own place, but does give them that space so they're not feeling like they're always stepping on the toes of, families. And we've built ADUs now for people that are, either homeless or had financial difficulties or health concerns, building a separate residence in their backyard for their family member.
That's great. And that could work like we were talking about with the aging parents, like for elderly people as well. And people maybe they're not so inclined to travel around. There's a lot of more elderly parents that the actual person, people in our age group are the primary caregivers of now, and they need this sort of constant care. They
Correct.
need more monitoring and a lot of people can't even afford for these elderly population to go off to these retirement homes.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and we found a lot during COVID that obviously the scares that happened with elderly homes during COVID, that a lot of people do not want to send their aging parents into an elderly home. They'd rather have them in their own backyard. And, maybe there's still nurses and things that visit, but at least they are sort of cohabitating with their own space.
Absolutely. Well, there's so many different ways that you could utilize, container homes that you focused on balanced containers. Let's go back a little while and tell me what you were doing before you started even doing this, and where were you at, and what was that pivotal moment in your life where, that really said, "Hey, I'm going to really start, this container home industry. I'm going to really give this a go."
Yeah, so as you mentioned in my bio, my family has been involved in the event business now for it's actually 45 years. Started out in trade shows, got into mall kiosks, got into outdoor pop-up shops. And when I say that, I mean things that you'd see at a music festival or at the CNE grounds or specialized large-scale events. We were building about 10 years ago, we started building out of modified shipping containers because they're waterproof, because they're secure. That was always our space. My family was also involved in traditional real estate, renovating homes, flipping homes, landlord, that kind of thing. So come from a pretty handy background when it comes to design and building of things. Then, COVID really is what changed things for my family. The event space went to sleep overnight during COVID. The last thing people were doing was large scale events over 10,000 people that we were normally building for. So I'd always been following the container home movement. I was very interested in it. And when the lights went out during COVID, I basically had to pivot and relied on some of my experience with home reno and some of my friends that were even out of work that were traditional carpenters. We just started playing around with how to fit out a container and sort of debunk some of the myths that I had seen online about container homes and what they were. and built some prototypes. And, we were off to the races in building the residential sector of our business, starting out with a backyard office and then expanding into cottages and homes. And now we're sort of focused on the ADU market.
Yes, yes. That's great. And you're doing a lot in the commercial space sort of now as well,
Yeah,
correct?
so our sectors, we primarily sell into the event space, as I had mentioned. In commercial space, we build out a lot of commercial buildings and activations. We were just involved in the new Rogers Stadium, building out all the concession stands and kitchens and whatnot. And then also in residential as well.
That's incredible. That's incredible. You maybe in the next one of your next projects is gonna be for the Olympics. You can go into the Olympic Village.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Well,
Olympic Village by Wellness Containers.
the large scale events at the largest scale are almost making it mandatory to use containers. The World
Mhm.
Cup after in Qatar was the stadium. One of the stadiums was built out of containers. The entire vendor village was built out of containers. We are involved with the World Cup coming to Toronto and some of the other cities in North America in 2026 uh, to build out of containers, as well as the event sponsors that will be building out of containers. Because again, they're just weatherproof structures. These steel boxes really can be used for anything and finished any way you like.
Right. No, they really can. Can we take a second here? It's a bit off track, but let's differentiate between a prefab home
Yep,
and a container home. And also, let's just take trailers off the
yep,
table
yep,
entirely.
yep.
Modular home, because this is not a modular home. Like this is not like a.
Well, yeah, let's clarify what modular means. It just means that it is factory built.
Mhm.
Prefab homes can be too, and these can be anything from, wall panels or volumetric buildings. Containers are just one of the mediums we build out of, and considered modular construction. Modular is factory built, quality controlled. We're finishing our CSA designation, so that building departments are not concerned with what's behind the walls or how the building was made. It's a preordained, regulated process. We build on the same process to ensure we're meeting building standard qualities. So a container home is just the medium that we use within modular construction to build out our units. But the roof systems and all the stuff that we put on top of our containers, they're wood framed, but they're done in modular sections so that they're pre-built, then shipped to site and assembled on site, which speeds up the overall process.
Right, right. So sort of like a mix between sort of like a prefab
Yep,
and prefab model. But the
yep,
reason I always like to indicate it's not like a trailer is I think a
yep.
lot of people think them as trailers.
The
Um,
word modular could be yes, and quite honestly, it's modular construction is the new sort of player on the street, the new way to build. It's still misunderstood by a lot of people as well as financial institutions. Some institutions will think that a modular build means trailer, meaning it's on wheels and could disappear.
mhm.
Uh, it's not modular, meaning it's just built in modular sections and assembled on site, much like a trailer would be built in a factory. It's just sections of a building that can be transported by traditional trucks and cranes and things on site to speed up the on-site process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with the trailer, often, people think they'll live in a trailer, whatever, do whatever. But that is not really the problem with that type of investment is it's depreciating. It's a
Correct.
depreciating asset. It consistently is going to go down. What's the longevity of container homes and how does it compare if an appraiser was to come and do an appraisal on a home that was like a regular built home compared to a home that could be a container built home. And I remember in the past you referred to it like Lego, adult size Lego. You
Correct.
can actually stack them. It doesn't have to be just a one unit
Yep.
thing. You have used these for all, like not only large size commercial buildings, but even
Yep.
for family homes with garages and all
Yep.
sorts of creating things just through this amazing stacking process.
Yeah, so they are adult size Lego. I mean, we can join modules together. We remove the internal walls so they're not just long, skinny structures. They can be open and then reframed to any size. When it comes to the valuation, you're right. Things like trailers, boats, all of this, they're depreciating assets. A container home, when it's built on a building permit and it goes through the exact same process as any other building, it actually appreciates just like any other building. The building department doesn't really care once the building is stamped and goes through all the regular processes. And when it lands and is finished on site, that last 10% finishing, it goes through occupancy. It's treated as like any other building that's on your site. The only difference being is that they are a new type of build. So often there's still the education side of it to investors. There's not a lot of comparables to another container home that might be down the street for straight
Mhm.
comparison. But our clients have had no problem getting insurance, getting all the typical things, and even on resale. If anything, these things are attracting a different kind of buyer. There's a new cool sort of vibe to it, especially when it comes to getaway camps and those kind of experiences to use one of these things. From a longevity standpoint, there is no clean answer because these container homes have not been around longer than 20-25 years in parts of Europe. There is no evidence to show that they degrade at all. So, I mean, there's no reason that this wouldn't outlast a wood or brick or traditional home. As I mentioned, they're used in hurricane relief areas. They're used in fire resistancy. So our
I
job is
think
to
it
offer
might be a superior product to
well,
normal home building
you know,
almost.
it's not for everyone, but it's growing, the demand, the look and feel of these things. They can be cladded and finished to look like anything, but they do have superior qualities when it talks about structural strength and integrity. They are used in harsh climates, ruggedness, hanging off cliffs. They have wild structural properties to them. So, and then from a heating and cooling perspective, these things are steel rugged shells with spray foam insulation. They actually have a better R value and seal than a wood frame home with traditional batt insulation wood. So in effect, yes, they are premium in their function. It's just the eye of the beholder whether or not it's the look that they desire.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Well, from what I've seen, they're very attractive. And from what I've seen, you've been able to create them by combining them all together. They're pretty unique units, which do look like pretty conventional homes, a lot more interesting than a lot of the standard homes out there today. So, and I
Yeah, you can get pretty wild with the Lego designs, and then we can always incorporate, wood accents and wood elements and little bump outs and things to give it the architectural look and feel. We consider that the last 10% of the budget is what you want the outside to now look like, because it
Mhm.
can be cladded, it can be finished to look like anything. It's just the structural boxes make up the footprint of the home.
Amazing, amazing. Now, how would you say that this sort of housing strategy or like this sort of advice really that kind of like this type of housing goes against sort of conventional kind of housing and conventional sort of financial planning? Because we do kind of got to get a little out of the box here. And I think we're at kind of at a point where affordability and necessity is really taking, like interest over actual, oh, I need this type of home or I just need this type of design or whatever. Where do you kind of see things going in that regard? Like how does this go against the traditional builders and housing market that we have?
I would say again, we're starting to get a lot of clients that are looking outside of the box. They're being forced to look outside of the box. People that live in call it remote areas, there's not a lot of builders available. And so even though they may have checked all the boxes, they've got their financing, they've done their due diligence on their feasibility and finding out what they can do, there just aren't enough builders available to build that home. We're hearing stories in some remote areas where they can't get something built for 2-3 years in
Mhm.
advance. And so you're waiting in line, even if you have everything checked and ready to go. So, again, factory build, we can build it out of Oakville, ship it north. We're talking to communities up in native reserves, Northern Ontario, all over the place that we can build to help speed things up. Um, in the city and cottage country, we're also selling our builder packages to builders themselves. It allows them to buy a kit that gives them a roof over their head day one. The building shell comes in and they can turn around and build more properties, more buildings at a time because the hard work is been the heavy lifting has been done to create the shell.
Hmm.
Uh, we just recently finished a cottage in Muskoka. The GC that was going to be finishing it for us was asking where he could lock up his tools on day one. And I sort of laughed at him saying, within the next 4 hours, you're going to have an enclosed building that you lock the front door on. So it's just changing the thought process about what construction is and the speed. And also, again, with modular construction, you are allowed to do two things at once. When the foundation starts, we start building the building concurrently. Whereas traditional, you would go step by step by step, part of the reason that it speeds up the overall process.
What about with permitting and those sort of things? I know that's always a bit of an obstacle stuff, and I know, but does permitting seem to be a little bit quicker? I know you're going through some red tape and our government needs to cooperate and go faster, but aside from, do you find like the permitting for these type of construction based to basic construction, it tends to go a little bit quicker?
It depends on the municipality, whether they have ever dealt with modular construction. If they haven't, you could be starting at the starting line where they think it's a
Mhm.
trailer and going through those education bits. For those that are progressive, those that are looking for new building methods, we have pre-stamped packages that are ready. It speeds up the design process to get it to permit application. For the townships that have gone through it already, they can start rubber stamping these as pre-approved designs and start trying to achieve the 30-day turnaround on permits. Whereas it depends on the red tape, but we've had horror stories of people waiting 6, 8 months for permits. We are finding we are trying to do business with only progressive townships that are looking at new options that
Mhm.
can just speed up the process altogether.
Yes, definitely. Time is money for sure. And we need housing. We are in a housing crisis. So now, if you've been an incredibly successful entrepreneur from the beginning, even starting with your family business, you kind of executed this huge pivot from the event space into the residential. And right now you're still in the event space, also residential and commercial.
Yep,
If you were starting from scratch today,
yep.
with no followers, no capital, no connections, what secret move would you, as an entrepreneur, like, or as yourself, as Eric Balance,
Yep.
would you move would you use to get ahead fast?
I guess the secret for me is starting to see the vision come to fruition. I'm starting to see the businesses and experiences I've had start to make sense on my final place. And where I'm going with that is, I'm seeing that the frustration, the delays with red tape and in and around housing, how to multiply what you're doing within your business. We are going to take our business and start developing some of our own projects now and leapfrogging into the residential game. You really got to follow your heart. You really got to put in the hard work. You really have to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are. Try to find the missing pieces of the puzzle, whether that be a partner or a JV or whatever you need, if it's financing to get to the finish line. You got to have guts and you got to stop just sitting around talking about it. Everyone's a dreamer. I love our clients, but we get a lot of people every day that have dreams but never actually take action on it. You got to put yourself out of your comfort zone and really step on it, to try to make a difference in your life, especially as an entrepreneur. It's not for everyone. It's a very hard thing, but it takes guts to move ahead, to try to fit within that 2% that's different than the norm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think being born into an entrepreneurial family almost programmed you differently with
It
this
it
for
it
this
it, it
lifestyle?
did. It did. I mean, I saw uncles, I saw my father, I saw people around me putting their neck on the line, getting out there and doing it. And not every business needs to be super overly risky or a huge scale. It's about creating something that is going to make your lifestyle what you want it to be. Me working on the boat today is part of my dream. It's not just about what's in your bank account, it's about your lifestyle. But yeah, I was raised to go for it, to not just accept that, you get a 2% raise a year, or when to take vacation and those kind of things, that you make your own destiny, and you strive and you work hard at it to get there.
Yeah, it's a really different mindset that we're really taught, and mo the majority of people have been taught, to go to school, do well in school, go and get a job, work for others, which is great, trade time for money and whatever, which is fantastic. We can't all be entrepreneurs. We need to have
Yep.
people who are working as well, and that's great. But we really have to live our lives, not have our life live us. And
Correct.
this I'm hoping that this really kind of provides some people who think, oh, I can't afford to be a homeowner, or I can't get started yet, or or I can't qualify for just one pro. I need extra income to get in there and qualify for these mortgages. These are all great solutions also for people
Yep.
as well, so they could start building that wealth and really kind of learn to create this time, money, freedom in their life for sure. Now, what is the biggest lie or misconception about wealth building that keeps 98% of the people stuck, would you say?
Um, that I mentioned hard work, that it's just, I don't know, watching the clock, working 9 to 5, doing the things that maybe were traditionally in the past, the way that you worked hard, you went to school, therefore you can afford to do things. That the world is a changing place, and you gotta be different. You can't just follow the basic rules. I feel for the people that work hard every day, 9 to 5, and still live paycheck to paycheck. You really do have to be an outlier, and find something that is going to bring you, financial and lifestyle freedom from being like everyone else.
Or
Not sure.
learn to start investing like the top 2%. I mean, let's get, even if you're working every day, which is fantastic, sometimes we have to work, trade time for money, but we need to have additional residual streams of income,
You
whether
should
it's
have
side
multiple
business.
yeah, you should have
Yeah.
multiple revenue streams. And I think the big lesson is learning, for a lot of people, it astounds me that they don't understand how to budget. They go through their entire lives and they're told by someone else, a financial advisor or whatever, when they go to retire, what to do with their money. You got to learn how to budget. You got to learn what it's going to take to get to that next step. And for a lot of people that want to step out of their comfort zone and become entrepreneurs, they work the 9 to 5, then they do their side gig in the evenings or weekends, until they can make the leap of faith and quit that job, and carry on doing what they're doing. So, um, yeah, it takes guts, but you really need to pay attention to dollars and cents, and how to achieve your goals.
And if a lot of people really kind of pay attention to the dollars and cents, they think because they're out there working hard, trading time for money, that obviously they should be making enough money to be paying for their expenses. And with the reduction of wages and the cost of living today, you could budget until the cows come home, and it's still not enough for some
Right.
people, even if they're renting. And that's really frustrating for people. So I think that's where that residual income streams come in. What could I do to make more money? And when you make that money, we're not going to go out and spend it on stuff. You want
Don't
to
be buying
really kind
toys.
of
Yes.
don't buy toys or anything. You gotta buy assets and get your
Correct.
assets to pay for your liabilities. I think that's really kind of hoping, like, audience, when you're watching these different amazing experts talk about these options, we're hoping you're able to create some of these amazing techniques or investment strategies and start incorporating them, one that resonates with you, whether it's entrepreneurship or different types of investments. If we don't do anything, I think that's the biggest
Correct.
risk of them all, because I don't really think things are going to become less expensive, including housing. People are waiting for this huge housing drop.
Yep.
And real estate in the past, yes, it goes up and down, but it always ends up going way up.
Yep.
It really is. As long as you're in an area with strong economic fundamentals, real estate always ends up going up. So a lot of people are waiting for it to come down to these reasonable home prices. Oh, I need homes in Toronto to be $500,000. That's not going to
Not going to
happen.
happen again. Yeah, I've had friends that have been waiting 15 years for the market to drop and all these things. And in the meantime, they've continued to throw away rent dollars. You know, you got to take action at some point. It's not always going to, you don't have a crystal ball, and it's not always going to be the smoothest transition, but you've got to do your due diligence and put your neck out there and get going at some point.
And get creative. Like you've been put into a box and the box is giving you these results. You need to get out of the box.
Yes,
Get
sure.
out of the box. Like even if it's getting a modular home in a lot, maybe it is not a modular home, a container home
Yep.
in the lot, somewhere that is a lot more affordable for people to even start off with their first residence for those
We've had clients that have been saving up to buy a home, never got there, and their first property was to actually buy a very affordable plot out in the woods somewhere in cottage country, not even on the water, build a little tiny getaway camp, getaway spot with a deck and a hot tub, and they start renting it out for $300 a night. These getaway vacations are becoming the new thing, and they start generating income off things like that. And they're not talking about $1 million house starting from. They're talking about a $80,000-$100,000 lot in the middle of nowhere and starting with a little income stream on something.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. If you get creative, I really think sky is the limit. We just can't be scared to dream. You mentioned before, most people dream and they don't do.
Yep.
So I think we definitely, the next step, you have to start with a dream. Everything comes from ideas, but then we have to become doers. You have to implement. And I read actually this morning in the Prosperity Bible, I was reading where it says, you will never become rich from hard work.
Right.
Like
Trading out your money.
actually, yeah, it never does help you really just because we have to work smart,
Yep.
not hard. And there's people out there, and I know yourself, you're working now, you're working hard, but you're working on your boat.
Yep.
We have other
Yep.
entrepreneurs. I'm working hard today. I also worked really hard in my yoga lattes class,
Right.
that I wanted to get before I came to work. It
Yep.
really is creating this life, for yourself.
Yep.
And some people are making, no caps, income, salary, growing businesses, making a difference. Even some people in MLM companies or people who are really kind of figuring out these different sort of business facets that they could do, putting in 2, 3 hours a day,
Yep.
not necessarily, it doesn't have to take 16, 20 hours a day, even though you and I probably work that, right? Because
Yeah, as an entrepreneur,
we
I mean,
love what
you,
we
you
do
get
so
time
much.
in, but you get paid in other ways sometimes. But I always say that, if you get paid while you're sleeping, that's when you've made it. Wake up from a nap and know that something has benefited you moving forward. It's a good day.
That's what Warren Buffett says. A true indication of a person's wealth is how much money do you make when you are sleeping.
Sleeping.
So I
Yes.
love that. I love that.
Yep. Yep.
So what do you see the top 1 to 2% wealthiest people and families doing consistently that the rest of the world really ignores or avoids?
Keep looking for opportunities. Keep looking for creative spaces. I mean, not everything lasts forever. So if you're on a winning streak and things are going well, look at what the exit strategy might be from that in advance, and look at what the next opportunity may be to put that money or your time into. I've got some friends that are serial entrepreneurs that build businesses to sell them. They know that they're going to build in 3 to 5 years. They are selling. This is not a generational multi-family business that's going to last forever. You need to decide what your exit goal is as you start something. So always looking forward, always looking for the next, what's next, as an investment strategy.
I love that. So positive, so upbeat, and if you don't quit, you haven't lost. We have to continue to reinvent ourselves and
Yep.
continue to see what people need.
Don't
Thank
be
you.
afraid to fail. I mean, I've been in some businesses that I feel like I wasted a lot of time and energy, but I took some learnings, from it, and you apply it to the next one.
It's like all stepping stones. Fail forward. I tell my kids always,
Yep. Yep.
fail forward. So they
Yep.
don't look at failure as something to avoid or be
Right.
scared of. They
Yep.
look at it as something they actually achieved to do. I think it was Sarah Blakely's father used to gather all his kids around the table. You know Sarah Blakely of Spanx,
Yep.
and say, okay, so what did you fail at today?
Yes.
And everyone would go around and talk about what they failed. Because I think when we're failing, You're trying something new. You're putting yourself out there, and you're
Yep.
not going to get wins all the time. In fact, most
Yep.
people get more losses
Yep.
until they hit a win. And
Yep.
sometimes that win's not even repeated,
Yep.
which is
That's
which
right.
is incredible, but they'll keep going. So
Yep. Yep.
now, is there anything else you wanted to share with us, with the audience on this interview today? I understand you have a free gift that you are offering.
Yeah, so part of, you know, we have a lot of dreamers. We have a lot of people that come to us that have their big idea. The first step in any build project is the feasibility of that. It's looking at everything from your finances to the bylaws in and around maybe a property you're looking at. We normally charge a fee for a feasibility study to go through the bylaws with our clients. Happy to donate a free feasibility study here for someone that is either speculating on a property or has bought a property and is interested in maybe doing something with it, an addition or adding an ADU or what have you, to help them through that step so that they can make an informed decision on what they are permitted to do on that property, to see if it aligns with their goals.
That's such a generous gift because that's quite an expensive offer. Thank you so much for that. That's great. So audience, you will see the link to contact Eric if you choose to take him up on this offer. His contact information, along with more information on balanced containers. Everyone should definitely check out the website and see what is possible as you guys are doing amazing things. So thank you so much for that generous gift, Eric, and thank you so much for coming on and for this past, I think, 45 minutes or hour and on
Yep.
this webinar. And
Yep.
audience, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this amazing interview and keep your eye out in your inbox for tomorrow, where we will have another speaker talking about wealth building strategy that will help you fast track your financial freedom. Thanks so much, everyone.